Last night, WTOL, one of the affiliates out of Toledo, Ohio, WTOL got me. They got me making a rookie mistake. When we first started doing these, when I first started writing about black violence and denial all over the country, I used to just use links. But after doing this for a few months, I noticed I'd go back to the links that I wanted to see that had lots and lots of pictures, lots of videos of the fellas committing violence, mayhem, and chaos, and the stories had disappeared. That's why I started recording these videos. That's why I use them the way copyright law and fair use law allows me to use clips from these stories. Anyway, so I roll in last night after a hard night out of smoking cigars and sitting by the river with some of the boys, and I had like 10 emails saying, "Colin, you got to see this from Toledo, Ohio," and it was in my mind the perfect story. There was a bunch of neighbors getting together. Large groups of black people have been rampaging through their neighborhood, and they've been doing it for over a year. They had the obligatory meeting. They had the obligatory police chief show up and say, well, I'll tell you more about that in a minute, who was basically in denial. Then you had the reporter in denial. I thought, man, I'm going to get up first thing in the morning and do that story. Get up this morning, the video is gone. That's okay. The story's there, the video's gone. So I thought the story was so important, why don't we just look at the headline, read a few paragraphs from it. I'm going to tell you what's in it and how weird things are getting in Toledo. So here's the headline. Neighbors call for action on teen issues in West Toledo. And first line, they started off okay. It's nothing new that neighbors near Asbury Park. Now, that's not the Springsteen Asbury Park. This is in Toledo. Neighbors near Asbury Park have been dealing with unruly juveniles for at least a year now. But they say this summer things have gotten worse. Then they interviewed a lot of people who live near there, a person from a daycare center. She said that her cameras caught all these teens throwing rocks into one of the windows. There were lots of videos from from the cameras from the local people. Lots of videos of the crime happening. Lots of the aftermath. Lots of people going, "Hey, these guys they're threatening children. They're hurting our daughter. We can't use the parks anymore." And all stuff we've heard before. But here's where it got good. So they flashed to a meeting of all the neighbors in West Toledo, a white neighborhood. There's probably about 30, 40 of them in there. Every single person in that room was white except for the chief of police. And so we didn't really see the people talking to the chief, but we did get them off. We did get them away from the meeting later on, where they went into detail about what was going on, about everything about what was really happening, which is their white neighborhoods being terrorized by a bunch of black people. So here comes the chief, a black woman, a stout black woman. And she gets up there with a little impatiently reminding the people that she can't make an arrest unless you, the people in the room, call her. They can't do anything without a phone call. Without a phone call, nothing happened. And so all of a sudden, we see the flip, right? We see the script flip. We see the problem going from the predators. Now the problem is the neighbors. Well, every Toledo in America, and there are hundreds of them, they play this game. This is a kabuki dance, and it's always the same game. Hey, you got to call us. You got to call us. I've been to these meetings many times myself. You got to call us. You got to call us. Happens in my neighborhood. People call. One of my neighbors here, he calls. He said, yeah, guy with a gun down the street. I saw it. They pointed it at me.
It explains what police and prosecutors suggest you can do.
Calls the cops. Nobody shows up. Calls the cops. Nobody shows up. The 911 operators, when you call second or third time, they get very impatient, even if there's a gun involved. Anyway, the cops come in. pretty soon the cops are saying, listen, you should just move out of this neighborhood. Go out in the suburbs. My brother-in-law lives out there. They never have these problems. And so when I looked at that room, and we could see in the video, just a bunch of tax-paying, a lot of middle-aged people, senior citizens there. They just had this belief, founded in something maybe they learned when they were a kid in school, that if you play by the rules, you obey the law, you're going to be safe in your home and in your neighborhood. That's branded into a lot of people in this country. And you just can't get them away from it. You can't get them to understand that in places like Toledo, the chief of police and the prosecutor and the city council, they don't look at these people who are the black people terrorizing that neighborhood as criminals. They look at them as victims of white racism. They hand out books like the new Jim Crow, backing up their claim that anybody gets arrested is a victim of white racism. The new Jim Crow is an enormously popular book.
Neighbors say they are still figuring out their
It's funny. I was looking high, looking low for the actual video of this. I didn't see it, but I did see a video where a city councilman, a black city councilman in Toledo, he did a dine and dash, eats something in a restaurant, and runs out without paying. Nice. You know, one of the first times that Toledo came up on our radar screen here was it was a podcast that I posted on my podcast. If you hunt for it, you could find it. It's called Eye in the Sky. The guy had this super duper whiz bang technology that he developed to detect IEDs in Afghanistan. And he said, listen, we need to try it out. Looking for a place to try it out here. Why don't we find a high crime city and we'll just do a pilot project, no cost to them. And to make a very long story short, it's an airplane that takes high resolution photos, not video, photos of the entire city, or at least the high crime areas. And, you know, so if somebody committed a crime at 4 o'clock, you just go back and get the 4 o'clock video and you start looking at the videos, you know, blown up so you could see them. They take a video, a picture. They take a picture every second. So you just follow the pictures back or forward and you can see where they came from, where they went. Very interesting, very effective. They used it in Baltimore for a while until as a pilot project, but they didn't really tell anybody they were doing it. 6 months later, the city council found out they had a conniption for the same reason the city council in Toledo had a conniption. Because in Toledo, they said, we don't even want this thing because the cameras are racist. How can you assure us these cameras will not be racist? In Baltimore, when they found out the eye in the sky was up there, patrolling high crime areas, what they figured out was, okay, we're going to stop looking at high crime areas. We're now going to use the cameras to uncover police attacking black people for no reason whatsoever. So that's Toledo. Where nobody has an expectation of safety. Nobody has an expectation that you can take your kids to the park. Everybody feels powerless. Despite all the videos, everybody now feels very powerless. What they can do in Toledo about saving their neighborhood, fighting crime, putting people in prison. They don't understand that people who run the Toledo Police Department and the people who run the city of Toledo, they don't understand that they will do everything to, quote, not put a kid in the system if they're arrested for assault or breaking in or doing any of these things. They call the parents and they sit the parents down and they say, we don't want to put your kid in the system because this will ruin his life. No regard for the victim whatsoever. The reporter went totally along with it. Nothing going on here except some fairly disgruntled white people who can't understand why all these black people are showing up on their security cams breaking all these laws. That's how they roll in Toledo now. That's why they're losing neighborhoods. That's all over the country, just like West Toledo. Everybody's moving out. Nobody has any belief that anything's going to get better. It's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. So they've accepted the reality. The reality is if you start patrolling these neighborhoods, arresting people, putting them in jail for committing some really significant crimes that terrorize people, Well, they figured out in Toledo a long time ago that makes the black kids angry.
Neighbors in West Toledo tonight are trying to take back their neighborhood. This after they say teens have caused major safety concerns. Blair Caldwell has been on this story for over a year and explains what police and prosecutors suggest you can do to help.
It's an issue neighbors in West Toledo say they're angry about. Juveniles taking over their neighborhood and causing problem after problem. So many, in fact, neighbors didn't want to appear on camera for fear of retaliation.
I can honestly say I don't feel safe in the neighborhood anymore.
They're so disrespectful. They have no respect for any adult.
Andrea lives near Asbury Park and says the unruly juveniles have crossed the line, even assaulting her daughter.
It's constant 911 calls. My daughter's been assaulted at the park by these children. It's not safe to go to the park, and that sucks.
While neighbors are avoiding any contact with the teens, they want to take back their streets and called in some help from Toledo police and the juvenile prosecutor at their block watch meeting. Their advice is simple.
And if you don't call, it didn't happen because we don't know about it. We want your calls.
All you can do is call the police. You have to know that our hands are tied unless you actually see somebody commit a crime and you know it's them. That's the hard part.
That advice, though, disappointed some at the meeting.
I was pretty mad. Basically, these juveniles are going to take over our neighborhoods.
We can't take our streets back without the reinforcement of laws in place. If the laws aren't there, what do we do?
Neighbors say they are still figuring out their next step and how they can fight back.
I don't know what the answer is. Nobody knows what the answer is. I think if we could start by a little more respect.